welcome to the Mouse Bytes podcast. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Mouse Bytes, the show all about Disney video games past and present. I'm your host Clay, and today I'm joined by my co-host Jeph. Hello, Jeph.
Hello, Clay. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, we've this is episode 8, so we're slowly making progress. We're getting closer to being in the double digits.
Yeah.
And then at that point we become an actual real show. Until that point, when you're just doing single digits, no one takes you seriously.
Right.
And so once you hit that episode 10, people are like, wow, okay, this is a real show.
They mean business.
Yeah.
They're not just going to quit after next week.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is going to be a good episode. I'm excited about this one. This is probably the newest game that we've covered on the show so far, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
If I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah, this episode and next episode will both be newer games. So we're trying to give a little love to some of the more recent stuff, even if it's not all as good as the old stuff. But anyways, we can just go ahead and jump right into this because there's a lot to talk about with this.
There really is, yeah.
So this week we are taking a look at Disney Infinity. All right, so to start us off, I think we should just clarify because there are multiple Disney Infinity games. So we're going to talk real briefly about what the heck this game is. So Jeph, why don't you explain to the listeners what the heck this game is?
All right. At its core, Disney Infinity is a Toys to Life game, popularized probably first by Skylanders from Activision a few years prior to this, but it was developed by Avalanche Software, who has worked with Disney on multiple other games, including Cars and Toy Story and other licensed games. I'm sure there was more than that. There was a 3DS version that was done by Ultron, and then Heavy Iron Studios, not sure which one they worked on.
I think they did the Wii U and the Wii versions.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Alrighty. Cool. It came out in August 18th of 2013 on the Wii, Xbox 360, Wii U, PlayStation 3, and the Nintendo 3DS, as mentioned before. And then it was released on the PC just a couple months later. It was ported over in November of 2013. There was also a portable toy box, which was released for Windows 8, iOS on the iPad. And then there was also an app called Disney Infinity Action, which let you kind of put the characters into real videos.
Ooh.
Yeah, did you ever play around with that one in particular?
I actually did. I was such a
same.
nerd, dude.
Me too.
I did it on my iPad. I did it on...
Yeah, I had a
downloaded
Surface.
Yeah, and so I was like... I didn't play them a whole lot, and I did that Infinity Action one, and I like took a picture or something, and then I probably never touched it again. But
yeah,
I was just so in love with it back then that anything I could get my hands on, I was like, yep, I'm downloading it.
totally.
So,
Yeah, I played around with it. I remember at my office, I had there was one where the characters would sneak out from behind a wall, and I had them sneaking out of my cubicle.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, other details from this game. Do you have anything else?
I was reading a little bit, and I probably should have wrote some of this down because there was some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff for this one.
Yeah.
One thing that I read about was that Avalanche Software, the idea for this game kind of came up when they were working on the Toy Story 3 game, and they were looking at that opening scene from Toy Story 3 where all the characters were kind of playing out in that fantasy with the train and stuff, and so I haven't really played the game version of Toy Story 3.
Okay, I have played through that one.
Heard good things, so I don't know if any of it ended up going that route, but
yes.
I think okay. So it kind of...
Sorry, I keep jumping in, but reminded me so much of that opening scene when I played this, like the opening scene of this one.
Right.
It's very similar.
Nice. And so I guess that's kind of where they got the concept for this. And then they just, some of the developers were talking about it, and they're like, all right, we need to pitch this. And so they took it to John Lasseter and were like, hey, man, this is what we have. We have this idea for this game. And he was like not a fan about it. He didn't like it. He didn't like the idea of these characters meeting in their universes,
Sure.
and like, mixing together, mostly because he didn't like the art styles mixing. He didn't think that they would mix well. Right. And so I guess they just kept talking with him and were like, look, we can make this work. We can come up with a unique, art style that works for everything. And so he was like, all right, if you can make an art style that works for all of this, I'll be on board. And it ended up working out.
They totally pulled it off.
On board.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of an interesting thing. There was some other stuff I read about, but that was one thing that I thought was pretty cool. So
yeah. Just kind of while we're still in this section, we can go in more in depth later on, but it's definitely worth noting that art style they chose is that you're not playing necessarily as the characters from these movies and properties, but more so a toy of those characters. And like, yeah, obviously you're putting a toy on a base to make it work, and I guess we didn't go in depth on that, but essentially you have a physical toy that you put onto a base that the game reads and places into the game. But the art style is very plasticky and very much like jointed characters, like they're actual action figures in game, rather than trying to emulate exactly what they look like in their in their movie or in their property. So I would definitely agree they pulled it off very well, and it looks great.
Definitely. All right, so real quick, I think we should hit on just talk real briefly about our history with the game, any nostalgia or good memories. We both owned this game back then, so Jeph, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I honestly, it's so weird. My recent memories are not as good as my childhood memories, and I think it's just, as a grown-up, you've got so much going on, and it's just hard to keep things straight. So it's like, I don't remember if I got this right at launch, or if I got it for Christmas, or if I got it for my birthday. Like, I know I got it within the first year, because I definitely had it before the second one. And I played it a lot. I played through all three of the core sets that come with it, which, again, we'll dive into later. And I played around in the toy box a little bit. I couldn't ever get into creating stuff, but I downloaded tons online, and that was sort of my main way of playing this game. And when I think back on it, I'm maybe most fond of some of the things I downloaded, like a full-size Disneyland or things like that. So, yeah, what about you?
All right, well, it's a little different for me because I remember this part of my life really well, specifically buying this game. In fact, I remember where I was when I first heard about this.
Nice.
It was announced at one of their events. It was like a Disney what is
like
the event called?
D23 event?
That's it, D23, yes.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing the announcement trailer for it and just immediately being super stoked about this game.
I love right up your alley.
Yeah, I love collecting characters, and I have a ton of amiibo. I didn't at that point, but yeah, and so I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be so cool. I'll get figures, and I'll be able to play with these characters in other characters' worlds. Oh man, I was just so stoked. And so immediately I was like, yes, I gotta have this. And so soon after that, well, relatively soon, I ended up getting a Wii U. Okay. And it was actually right after I got married. And so I was like, cool, I'll get it on the Wii U when it comes out, because that was my new cool console. And so I figured, yeah, that's what I'll play it on. And so, long story short, I ended up getting a job at a used video game store, and was working there. And so I was like, all right, as soon as I get my first paycheck, I'm buying that game, because it had been out for a little while, not too long, and so the hype was kind of still there, and I was like, I gotta have this. So I literally turned my paycheck around and bought this thing, and I bought the starter pack, and all my coworkers were like, are you sure you want to buy this thing? I was like, yeah. And they're like, I mean, it's cool, but are you sure? And I was like, yes. And so I bought it, and I went home and I played the crap out of it. And so I didn't stop there. I kept buying characters, and some of the others, the story packs that came out afterwards, I did eventually get them all, the different play sets. It was a little bit slower after that, because I think I was more buying characters than I was like getting all the play sets. But I was just totally on board with it and played quite a bit. Eventually I got all the play sets for the first one, and I think I beat the majority of them. There was maybe a few that I didn't ever finish. Played quite a bit. I was like you though, I didn't spend a ton of time building in the toy box, but I did enjoy collecting things just to place it in the toy box. Just to kind of display everything I had. Exactly. And so there's like some challenge modes in here too that I spent a lot of time with, and just really enjoyed those. In fact, I remember there was like I got really involved in a Disney Infinity like group of people on Instagram back when it was really popular, and they did this whole like month of Disney Infinity, and so they would like on this day post a picture of your favorite character, post a picture of your favorite, and I did it like every day.
Nice.
And I'm sure my friends got really annoyed seeing all these pictures, but man, I was just like so sold out to this thing, and it came down to a more normal level for the following sequels. But at the beginning, man, I was so on board, and I was so all about it. And so yeah, it's a good memory. I look back on it, even just I pulled all my stuff back out of. I finally put it all away because it was taking up too much space. So I put it down in my basement. I pulled it all back up today and got everything out, and man, just playing it for a little bit that I played it today just brought back a lot of nostalgia from, heck, it's only been like 4 years, but it was weird. I put out the Cars playset, and I was looking at it, and it was like last save 2014. I'm like, that was 4 years ago, man. Like, it's just kind of crazy to think it's been that long, because it doesn't feel that long when you play it. But so that was way too long, but that's kind of my history with it. So lots of good memories, and good times. So
awesome. Yeah, it's really cool that you were so vested into it.
Yeah, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. So anywho, let's jump into gameplay discussion. All right, starting off, I always say all right. I need to stop saying that so much. Awesome.
All right.
Here we go. Awesome. Starting off, we're going to talk about visuals. Jeff, you had mentioned a little bit about the art style. Maybe you could embellish a little more on that. What did you think? Because you played this on the 360, right?
Yeah, I didn't mention that, but I did have it on the Xbox 360. The art style, to kind of expand on what I said earlier, it works really well as joining all of the individual art styles, but it doesn't lose the essence of any of them, in my opinion. Like you said, the Cars one, it looks like Radiator Springs. The Toy Story ones look like Toy Story, and especially the Pirates of the Caribbean one really is moody. It's kind of got some dark and foreboding looking stuff when you're kind of sneaking around. And Monsters U faithfully recreates like a little college campus, and overall, it has just this really good balance, in my opinion, of capturing the essence of what the core source material is, and then really making it all work together as one cohesive group of, I don't know what you call them, like styles all together. And like I said before, it's kind of dumbed down and plasticky looking, and in that regard, there's a lack of detail, which is artistically, good and bad. You don't get some of those wowing effects. Like if you really kind of look back on, for example, the Incredibles playset, you've got this big city, but it's not super detailed, so it almost just looks kind of bland, and redundant. And it's kind of like a give and take in having that art style. So, there other graphical issues that are more on the technical side. The frame rate's not very constant, and other little hiccups like that. Sometimes some visual pop-ups occur, and just little hiccups here and there. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else in that specific regard to the graphics.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on most of it. I think the lack of detail and just kind of making it look more like a toy setup, it works well. It probably made for a lot easier for them, I would imagine. I'd have to guess, like,
for making that many assets. Totally.
Right.
Totally.
And so, and even like some of the extra characters that they made, they decided to make these little, like, I don't know what you call them. They're a little like
yeah, they look like play school.
Yeah, play school. That's it. Yeah,
they look like little play school people, but they're Disney themed, a lot of them.
Right, and so that even I feel like was a little shortcut to add even more like characters, like Kermit the Frog.
Totally.
That you don't have to create a full, big 3D model with arms, legs, and walking animations. You just make these little waddling toys that don't even really have a walk.
They're all the same
animation.
Geometry, and they just have textures wrapped on them.
And so I think they did some stuff like that just to kind of keep things looking a little more, keep it simple. But even when I was watching the cutscenes today, like on the Lone Ranger playset, I just thought they looked really good. I thought, especially for the live action ones, they did a pretty good job, making it look relatively like the characters or actors from the movies. Plus, this way, you're not comparing this video game against the animation of, say, Monsters University, where it's like super, high. Yeah, like it was new at the time, and so lots of hairs and all kinds of really good details. So they didn't have to worry about all that. So I thought overall it worked well. I was on the Wii U, so I probably didn't have as good of a good-looking experience as maybe you did. But honestly, it never bothered me. I never looked at anything and was like, oh, that's ugly or weird. Like it. There was maybe some shading issues I noticed when I was playing today, but really minuscule stuff, to be honest. Character animations were great. Like Jack Sparrow walks like
he's got
Jack
that
Sparrow.
Swagger. Yeah.
And so there was little details like that I thought they nailed pretty well. So
totally. One other thing that I'm not really sure when else to note it, and I think it can be fit into the visuals, is that opening sequence of the game. Is just incredible. It's like this 10-minute tutorial to teach you the basic controls, but it starts you out literally as like a spark in the stars, and then it kind of puts you down on just this empty ground with like just a light bubble around you, and it's dark. And as you move, there's like a narrator and this really great score. But what impressed me of this little intro sequence is, one, the lighting effects are really good. Two, the animations as different scenery pops in is really cool. You get to see multiple characters and their animations, and not just you controlling them, but like sort of almost like scripted sequences. Like Rapunzel's there at one point, Jack Skellington pops out from behind a tree. And then also seeing environmental shifts in real time. So like at one point you go from like Monsters University and it's kind of like afternoon or dark or whatever, and then all of a sudden it turns into a sandy beach with a ship that's like shipwrecked up on a rock, and it becomes mid-afternoon, and all of this happens in real time as you're playing, which is, I mean, it's very impressive. It sets a really good tone for the game. And so I think that was a really good visual achievement, that they were, again, proving the point that these art styles could just seamlessly mesh one into the other. And then it ends with it ends basically emulating the Walt Disney Pictures logo with the castle and, the train in the background and the fireworks and just at sunset, like if you can imagine that Disney castle logo that is the more modern one from the last 10 years. It's really cool.
Dude, just since you're talking about that part, that backdrop from the Disney Castle intro with like the sunset and everything is probably my favorite backdrop in this game.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah, and like every time I'm in the toy box, I switch to that one. Yeah. And then you can like, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you can make like a music player that you can pick the song that plays on it. Right. And there's a bunch of like really old music from like Cinderella and stuff, and I'll just put one of those on, and dude, I get like borderline choked up when I do it, because I don't know, man, it's really beautiful. And so in fact, I did that just before we started recording. I had to load that up on my toy box just to see that, because that backdrop is just really awesome. So anyway, you mentioned that I had to. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen the intro cinematic, you definitely should go check it out right now because even if you have no intentions of playing this game, you should check it out because it's super cool.
It really is, and
so
with the sound on and the narrator and the score, definitely.
Yeah, and so after getting through that part, I was so stoked to play more of the game because, like you said, it really sets things up well. So,
yep.
Now, audio for this game. We could maybe start off with the music here.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start since.
Yeah, please do.
I have mixed feelings about this one.
Same.
I tend to think. I kind of remember thinking when I was playing through this for the first time that I didn't feel like there was enough music from the
exactly how I felt.
The source material,
real music, yeah.
And so more of it was them just trying to make music that sounded like it came from those games,
which they didn't necessarily do a bad job at, but it's like it didn't cue up that nostalgia like the characters and environments did.
Right, and you would think that Disney would be throwing a lot into this, right. And so you would think that they'd be able to find that stuff. And like I said, there's that music player you can get in the toy box, which cues up a lot of it, but you can't get that in like the main storylines. And so, some of them are better than others. I was listening to the Monsters U music today, and I actually was kind of impressed with the jazzy kind of sound that they had. And I was like, all right, this actually feels like it's from it. But then you go to some of the other ones, and it's like, yeah, this is not from the movie. And, and so, yeah, certain times I just didn't feel like it really landed it completely. And some of them were probably borderline obnoxious, but that wasn't the majority by any means. But I just remember thinking back that there was a lot of times like I was thinking to myself, I wish this was like the real music. But the theme song I think is really good and like the menu music, like all that stuff I think works really well. It's very magical sounding, and I can think of it in my head right now, so it was at least that lasting on me. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo most of those sentiments. The one that really jumps out for me is the Incredibles playset, where there was a few kind of high moments where I think the Incredibles theme, the like would have just been perfect, just this like exclamation point to drive the point home, hit the nostalgic, chord or whatever, and really deliver that experience. And it could have complemented the music they put, because the music they put, again, is not bad by any stretch, and it sounds like it fits. It just isn't the Incredibles theme song, like I don't know. There's a lot of instances like that. Pirates of the Caribbean did the same thing. I think all the playsets did the same thing. I don't know that any of them used any of their actual official themes, whereas, like you said, you can, in the toy box, you can definitely put in some background tracks that are just, they're not synced to any action, but they, they work as background music, but that's not as good as like these scripted moments that the playsets are full of, missing out on that. So,
so that's got to be the issue, or the reason, I would guess, is that I think, they needed stuff that they could queue up,
dynamic,
dynamic and all that, and so
unfortunately.
Whereas if I put in the the Jack Skellington backdrop on the toy box, it plays "This Is Halloween" in the background from the movie, and you're like, all right, this feels way better, and so that's probably the only negative I have as far as the music goes.
Same.
The voice acting in these aren't bad either. The majority of them aren't the original voice actors or actresses. Especially some of the obviously the big budget people, Johnny Depp and stuff, are not in this.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they got Tom Hanks' brother in this one though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's his brother. It's definitely not Tom Hanks, but it definitely sounds like his brother. And then no Billy Crystal, no. The guy who does Mike Wazowski is really close though, whereas the one who does Sully is not quite as close to John Goodman. He's a little.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So I mean, there's some really good ones. There's some not so good ones, and then there's like one or two that are just not quite there. But
I
would say it's above average.
What do you think?
Performances are good.
Yeah, totally. Like, and especially in the storylines, there is a lot
more
of,
so in the story.
there's a lot of, hey, I need you to do this. Can you go do this? And so I'm glad that they went for it and they didn't like just do like, whatever. Just like
totally could have.
Yeah, and it probably would have fit fine in these kind of games. But they added that little bit extra, being submersed in the storyline, and so I appreciate that. Did you like the narrator in this game? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's fine. He's got kind of this upbeat, youthful voice. Like, wow, you did it! Good job! Let's go check it out. It's not bad. I think the opening narrator's like a more of a gruff guy, isn't it? Or is it the same guy? Now I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Never mind. I don't know. I don't mind him. I think he does well. Occasionally, I think he repeats himself when he wants to do something, but when
like I think he
stuck.
talks during the challenges where you're like trying to collect things, and I think I remember him being kind of annoying at that time. But other than that, I agree. I don't think he was overly obnoxious.
Yeah.
So
cool. How about sound effects?
I'm trying to think.
Because I can tell you, like, when you get the little capsules they look like the capsules you'd get out of like a quarter machine as a kid.
Yes.
When you pop those, it's super satisfying. A lot of the action and toy sound effects just sound like plastic breaking, or like when you kill an enemy. Overall, I don't have any complaints about any of the sound. Yeah,
the laser gun that you can get, there's a bunch of different laser guns. Those always sounded really cool. I thought they had like a really intense laser blaster sound. And I always felt pretty cool shooting those, so I always liked that one. I'm sure there's some other cool ones. I'm
trying to think. Like the car sound effects were good, and I feel like there was enough variety and uniqueness to different ones that it didn't just seem like it's a model swap with the same sound design for a lot of the actions and characters and effects. So nothing. I feel like we say this every time. Like nothing great, nothing bad. Just it's adequate. It does the job.
One day we'll come across a game that just has the most outstanding
blows us away.
Yeah, sound effects, and we won't be able to shut up about it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of because it's been so long since I've played like the Pirates of the Caribbean one. Was there some good like nautical sound effects, like the Kraken attack or anything like that? Do you remember?
No, I mean
cannon fire, like any of that stuff. Like nothing jumps out at me.
I liked the pistol, sound and everything, but I don't know.
Fair enough.
I did play it today,
the sound work is good. It's not super redundant or annoying. It sounds like from our memories, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Next up is our gameplay. No, not our gameplay. Gameplay and difficulty. And so we can kind of hit the difficulty as we go through this. I don't know, because it's a mixed bag as far as difficulty goes, I think. But I figured starting off, we could kind of explain the starter pack, because that's literally where you start from.
Yeah.
Jeph, would you like to explain the starter pack to the listeners?
Yeah. So if you got the bundle, wow! If you got the bundle at the time that it came out, it came with the game and essentially three characters and three play sets that they could interact with, which are like, we've been talking about them, but they're essentially isolated story modes for each of the characters that are almost like self-contained games in and of themselves. So you get Sully, James P. Sullivan, and a Monsters University campaign. Then you get Captain Jack Sparrow, and then the Pirates of the Caribbean campaign, and then Mr. Incredible and the Incredibles campaign. And so, within each of those, as we mentioned before, you've got a self-contained story. The stories and the way you play them pretty much unfold with you doing certain objectives that will eventually unlock progression that will take you to new sections or new areas, or open up the map in the case of like the Incredibles. And ultimately, I believe all of them have a final boss of sorts, and not remembering the end of the Monsters U one as much as the end of like the Pirates and Incredibles one, but like you unlock things as you play. You can collect parts and things that you can use in the toy box, which is the other half of the game, which is the more creative Minecraft style mode or Little Big Planet style mode, depending on kind of how you would compare it. let's see. It also comes with the Infinity Base, which is the device that plugs into the USB port of your system of choice. Or I have absolutely no idea how it connected to the 3DS. Do you?
No, I have no idea. That's
okay.
a great question.
But on the Wii U, all of those other ones, it was USB based. There was some really weird compatibility issues as far as from system to system, and more so going on into the sequels. So like for example, like the Xbox 360 one did not work on the Xbox One. So if you got Disney Infinity 2 on the Xbox One, you had to get a new base, which just, I mean, for a USB based thing, like I just don't understand. Like it just doesn't, like it's just baloney to me. The Wii and Wii U ones, I think were interchangeable. I can't promise you that one, but I mean, those systems are almost identical hardware, just faster. Right. I think the PS3 and PS4 ones even work together, but don't quote me on that one. But the Xbox ones are the ones I had experience with, and it was really annoying. So, it's whatever. I mean, we can go on a whole other tangent about how this game should never have had sequels. It should have just been expanded like Minecraft, but that's just my opinion. Going back to what came in the pack, there's also some power discs that came with the pack. Those are just these little flat pieces of plastic that you can actually stack and put on where the playset thing goes, and those will add modifiers to levels. They can kind of change the background or add items or things like that. So I never really got into collecting those or using them. I don't know that I ever did use the ones I did have. Did you get into those too much?
Yes. So let me talk about the power discs.
Please talk about those a little bit.
So the starter pack came with I don't know if it was one or two, a small number. I think they were random what you got, and so then you could buy additional power discs in these blind bags. And oh man, I probably spent so much money on blind bags.
That's where they get you.
Yeah, and if I had been
the original Loot Crate.
Yeah, for real, dude. I should have waited until they went down in price, which I did get some after they came down a little bit. And now you can go to a used game store and find a giant tub of them and go through and get everything you want. But excuse me, for me, this was where the game, they really had more fun with it and were able to kind of branch out more and do some more pull things from different movies and series that maybe wouldn't have gotten as much attention otherwise. Vehicles were a big part, weapons. Like you mentioned, there's I think there's two different ones that you can change. There's the background, and then there's the is it like the art style or the
like almost like a texture pack? Yeah,
yes,
kind of like
inside. So those two could only be used in the toy box, but then and those were like hexagonal weird shaped ones, whereas the circular ones went under your character, and those for the most part could be used in the actual campaign. And so I know for me, I used like two of the ones I got pretty much the entire time I played through the first three. One of them gave me like more coins when I would break things, and the other one I think either made me stronger, like made my attacks more powerful. And so as far as playing through the game, I used like the same two the entire time just because I liked what they did, and that's what I would focus on. But like I was saying earlier, I just got pulled in by all the really cool things that they were referencing. There was a Darkwing Duck gun. There was the Electric Mayhem's bus vehicle was one, and they just came
I wish I'd gotten more into it. Yeah, that sounds cool.
There's some really cool ones, and then you can only use so many at a time. So I'm sitting there going like, which ones do I want to put on right now? And so it's just a really fun way to just kind of change your experience up. It was something that I would, if I was at Toys R Us or something or Target, I would grab a pack, and then get to my car and open them up and see what I got. And yeah, I got a bunch of duplicates, and that's annoying, but it was just fun. It was fun to look for them. Honestly, I should go back and grab a few that I never did get that I wanted. So they're hit or miss. There's some really cool ones. There's a Lilo and Stitch surfboard that is like one of my top favorites, and
that's cool.
So there's some really fun ones. So I love me some power discs. I kind of didn't enjoy them as much in 2 and 3. But for 1, I thought they did a really cool job coming up with some cool things to throw in there. So 2 thumbs up on the Power Disc for me. Jeph, I know that they weren't as important to you, but I can see why.
I think I just didn't really know how to use them, honestly. That's one thing about this game, is that it's got so much depth to it that sometimes it's overwhelming. And since I wasn't as invested in it as you were, I think I might have missed out on a lot of things like that, like little things like those things. I didn't really understand what to do with them, how they worked, or whatever. So I might have to revisit that next time I go back and play.
Fair enough. I would let you borrow mine, but you live too far away.
So. Yeah, I know. Got to move out here, man. Real quickly, just kind of getting back to gameplay, just real quick, as far as what comes with the game, a lot of it is third-person platforming, sometimes third-person shooter, and or even like kind of melee, third-person melee. But the game does also have the vehicles, like you mentioned, and so like the entire car set is vehicle-based, and it's amazing to me that there was that many gameplay types and styles within this, because there's some challenges and levels and things that are just platforming, and there's some that are just shooting, and there's some that's like, just melee, and then all of a sudden there's like races, and then car platforming, and just like weird stuff like that. And it's like they could have just done 3D platformer with some basic, like, everybody has a melee attack, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to add all the other stuff that they did, but I think it's great that they did. And for the most part, it works pretty well. Like, the targeting system works okay and all that. It has its wonky moments, oftentimes in toy box things where things are created by people and maybe not set up in a way that the game could have anticipated. And, you run into glitches and character clipping and weird stuff, but overall I like that there's that much variety.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great point, because you're right, it could have been way more cookie cutter than it ended up being. Yep. And we'll talk a little bit about the specific play sets in a little bit, but yeah, each one kind of has its own distinct overall gameplay style. Even if they are kind of feel similar, they did different things with each one, and I thought that was really cool. One other thing I wanted to bring up was the starter pack. We talked about the 3 series that are represented in that, and that's your Monsters University, your Pirates of the Caribbean, and your Incredibles. And it's an interesting 3 that they chose to launch with. Obviously 2 of them are Pixar, and one of them is live action Disney. And so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that was a good call? Maybe do you think why they would go that route?
I think it was a weird move, in my opinion. I think that one of them should have been Mickey Mouse, and that should have just been a day one thing. It's
right.
The mass appeal, the core of what Disney is. So I think one of them should have been a Mickey adventure through maybe kind of the old Toontown style something. Like, I don't know, like there's a lot of ways that they could have gone with a Mickey adventure. The Monsters U one made sense because obviously that was the summer that Monsters U came out, so like it was just promotional. I can't remember if a Pirates movie came out that year. I would assume number 4 if there was one. It would have had to have been, but you know what I mean, like it's good to include that, but I don't know, like it wasn't a bad one to include, but I think you could have swapped out Mr. Incredible for Mickey in this core set and had a broader appeal, because it was pretty appealing already, but like it seemed weird to me to not include Mickey as like right off the starting line. Yeah,
I mean he showed up eventually, but never got proper representation, I don't think. But yeah, and I guess I never thought about Mickey, but that isn't a bad idea. I just think that they could have covered their bases a little bit more and picked a more classic character from a more...
Also agreed, yeah.
And Mickey would fall in that. I mean, as long as you didn't do like Mickey's Clubhouse or something.
Right.
It wouldn't be too alienating or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. I like I get the Monsters U, like you said, and I think having a live action representation makes sense. But and I love the Incredibles, don't get me wrong, and I'm glad they did it. that probably could have waited and been launched, later. But I probably would have gone with an Aladdin or a Lion King or something.
Yeah, those would have been good. I would have loved to have Rapunzel as its own playset.
Totally.
And
Totally.
like maybe do 2 storylines, one as Rapunzel, one as Flynn. But it's also weird to think that it was 3 male characters when there's so many female, and I understand demographics and the appeal of video games, yada yada, but like I don't know, man. I would have been just fine with like any female Disney heroine, honestly. Like I could think of a million different ones that would work and work well, and people would do. Like Mulan would be an awesome one. And easy to make a playset for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, thankfully she showed up.
A lot of them did
later on.
Yeah.
And Merida was a starter in the second one, so they did finally right that wrong, I think. But it's a totally valid point. I don't know. I think that the older Disney movies were kind of underrepresented in this entire series, not just the first game. Some of them did finally get characters. We got Baloo in 3 and Stitch in 2. But and then I understand, like, kids nowadays probably don't care as much about those.
Right.
And these games were more or less, not necessarily targeted at me, even though it got me from the very beginning. But and like you said, these are somewhat promotional, and that is half of the purpose of this.
And merchandise tie-in to modern things is very common, so it makes sense.
Totally. So I thought we'd just mention that real quick because I thought that was interesting. Real quickly, we should maybe hit on the toy box a little bit more, because I feel like if we keep moving on, we might not circle back around to it.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and start with that, because I don't know a whole lot about it other than its basic.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Because it's been a while since I've messed with it as well, and what it is in 1 and what it is in the third one are completely different. So
that's true.
I'll try to remember the first one as much as I can, but basically it's a open sandbox, toy box type area where you can build and create things. And so as you play through the normal play sets, you unlock assets that allow you to place them in your toy box. And I think it comes with some stuff like already unlocked, and then as you play through more stuff. So as you beat through the Incredibles, you unlock buildings for the Incredibles, or little characters from Incredibles, or vehicles. And so I loved just unlocking and getting a little check mark next to different things, and trying to unlock and get everything from the specific play set. And so I thought that was a really smart way of doing that. Also within the toy box, they had like a slot machine style thing where you could I think it was, you spend coins or something. It was some sort of currency.
Yeah, sparks, I think.
Yeah, sparks. And you could it would basically randomize and pick one of the things, and you would unlock that. Like, for instance, the Cave of Wonders, which was really cool.
Right.
And then I guess you could basically keep re-rolling and eliminating everything in that little window. So eventually you could get everything in there if you had enough sparks or whatever. And so, you could go into this editor mode, which was, which kind of took you out of your character, and then you can move things around, delete things, flip them around. And so you kind of like linked things together, and you could pick giant chunks of land or little pieces. You could elevate things in the air. It gave you quite a bit of freedom. They also had some different tools that would allow you to make quote-unquote games, so you could like tether things together. So if you stepped on this button trigger thing, it could trigger this machine that generates enemies, and they would come and you'd have to fight them. Or I think you could create like soccer balls and goals.
Yeah,
you could make race tracks. Options.
Yep.
And a lot of it I didn't mess with, and like I said, I used it more of as a trophy area. But and that was the cool thing about the online part of it, was that you could download other people's things they had made and check those out and play through them. And so they had contests and other social things where they would try to get the community involved with the game. And so there was a lot of creativity there. I played through some other play sets, and there wasn't anything that I was always, it felt like people were stretching to make things what they were. So
Yeah.
at least with the first one, it felt like certain parts were kind of lacking. It was a bit of a stretch, but
Agreed.
I never played that one where it was it Disneyland or Disney World?
Yeah, it was like Disneyland.
I wish I had done that one because I feel like I would have enjoyed that just because
It was cool.
walking around.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface. There was a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
In the toy box, but
Did you feel like the controls of it were a little
like
kind of convoluted, like kind of like
creating
placing
it
items?
part?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I felt like putting terrain items, like you had to space them just right, and it like didn't snap together perfectly. So like you could end up with a little gap, and you couldn't really fill it, and there wasn't any way to really fix that. And then like you couldn't overlap items, so you couldn't make like really nice looking landscapes where it kind of organically, like if you put two cubes one into another, you can kind of make little steps, but like it wouldn't let you do that. So you had to find, like, you either had to unlock the right piece that had that, or just put two next to each other at different heights, and then you end up with like connection errors where it's just like this one's a little bit bigger than this one, so you can't like snap it over to this one, and like if you have 3 in a corner or 4 in a corner, it just like messes up. I ran into that a lot, and that's kind of why I really never got into it. I don't know. Did you struggle with that too, or do you remember that?
Yeah, at times there was things that felt a bit clunky with snapping things together and the controls. I've just never found a game that has level building or whatever building like that where the controls weren't a little bit confusing.
It's true.
You've got multiple axes to move it, flip it, go up, go down, go left, go right. So it was a lot, and so yeah, it wasn't the most fluent, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's valid, and you probably weren't the only person who thought that.
Okay.
So yeah, but overall, it's a fun thing. I just enjoyed going in there because this was all right. This definitely needs to be mentioned. This was really the only place you could cross everything together, because I couldn't take Mr. Incredible and go into the Monsters Universe playset. So, which that kind of was a bummer for me. Like I was really hoping going in that you'd be able to, maybe you'd have to play through the entire campaign before that would become available, but at the very least you could afterwards do that. But no, you could only play through them with that, and so it took me a while, but I understand why they did it, so I just kind of was like, whatever.
Right.
But
and going off your quote from John Lasseter earlier, I would imagine it was related to that, so it makes sense.
Right. Like, let's keep them separate in their universe, but the whole concept is once you're in the toy box, anything can happen. You're a kid, you're playing with them, and they can all, interact however. And so this was really the place where you could really experiment, and there was a lot of characters, like I mentioned, that weren't exactly tied to a toy set, and so a play set, and so people like Jack Skellington and Mickey and Wreck-It Ralph, that was really the only place you could play with them. And so there was some like challenge things that you could do as well with them, but so that was where I spent a lot of my time, just because that was the only way I got to play with some of these characters. And so that was another reason that I spent a bit more time there, that was really where you could kind of mix and match, and you could be driving around in Mr. Incredible's convertible with Mickey from Fantasia and stuff. So there was a lot more fun going on there. But I think the toy box felt a little bit more kiddie than maybe the play sets did to me. Yeah. Just because I felt like that was really kind of more for encouraging kids to be creative. Where I don't know, it just, whereas in Minecraft I feel like I'm challenged to create things more. But in this, it didn't feel as challenging to me. I don't know. But this whole thing is really more geared towards kids. But anyway. All right, so we'll keep moving here. Anything else on the toy box you wanted to hit on before I pull us away from there?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Like I said, there's still a lot. I'm sure
there's a lot of depth to this game. Yeah,
there's tons more things that you can do to make it do different things. But we won't hit on that. So, real quickly, I just wanted to hit on the characters themselves. There's close to 40 characters, if I counted correctly, in this game. If you count they made these like crystal variants
Yeah.
Where they made specific characters and they made them kind of translucent clear. And so, I don't know, just they weren't even like that much rarer than the other ones. I think they were just trying to, oh, it's cool. You can have this one where it's Buzz Lightyear, but he's partially clear. So I never owned a lot of them. I think I might have Buzz Lightyear in that style. But other than that, I didn't really set out to have the variants. So anyway, other than that, I just wanted to hit on a couple that might not get some love otherwise, I guess. I don't know. My favorite character in this game is Jack Skellington, which is probably like the cool answer. But no, just the day they announced like he was coming, or I saw him in the trailer or something, I was so happy. And I think that he has a really cool art style, and I love the way they did him. And so he was a big favorite for me. Before I keep talking about them, did you have any favorite characters from the first one?
Not really any that stand out. Like Wreck-It Ralph was my go-to guy. That was who I played a lot as. I just love Wreck-It Ralph. So totally. It was that. I'm looking through the list here of which ones I had. I feel like I didn't have as many from the first one as I did from like the later ones.
Okay.
So just because of that, it kind of limits what I have for this
Fair
version
enough.
1.0.
Hey, no judgment, dude.
Ralph and Vanellope were often who I'd go with.
Nice. Yeah, Mickey's really cool in this one too. He's got his little sorcerer's apprentice hat on, and he's got his arms crossed. He's looking pretty cool. So he's pretty neat. I like him. I own a lot of these. I don't think I have the whole collection yet. And just thinking about this game today and playing it, I'm like, I need to go back and find the rest of these because I'm like close enough that I just need to finish it. Especially now that they're probably dirt cheap and people are practically giving them away. So there's a few I'm missing still that I need. Like I'm severely lacking in the Incredibles lineup. I don't have either of the Frozen girls. I don't have Vanellope. Phineas and Agent P I had zero interest in having because that was way after my time. I know you're a fan of that show, and
I love that show.
I just never. Do you have those characters?
I've got Agent P. I don't have Phineas.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm missing them. I don't think I have Mike Wazowski. But so I've got quite a few, and I've got quite a few of the later ones too. So
nice.
Yeah, so that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea outside of the play sets. There's some kind of ones that stand out there I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
So moving forward, real quick, I think we'll just kind of talk through the play sets. Jeph, you mentioned that you only had the starter 3, correct? Cause
that's correct. Yeah.
There's those 3, and then there are 3, excuse me, that were released after the starter pack. I assume they were like released in waves. They didn't all come at once.
Yeah.
So if you want, I'll hand you over to you to talk through how the first 3 worked, and then I'll kind of finish up with the last 3 if you want.
I'll do the best I can with these. I haven't played through them all the way since the game came out, and in my research this week I kind of just looked through them just as a refresher, but didn't like replay them or anything. So I'll do as best I can, but I can kind of give you the essence of what they were and my take on them. So starting with the Incredibles, that was probably the first one I played. I'm not like thinking back on it. You basically can play as Mr. Incredible. I guess you can, if you have the other characters, you can swap them in, like Mrs. Incredible, Violet, Dash, or Syndrome. I never did that. I only ever had Mr. Incredible, so I played through as Mr. Incredible. But you're in what's the town called? Metroville or something?
That sounds right.
Yeah, so you're in the town. It's being run over by Syndrome's bot creature things with the little laser eyes that look like giant orbs. Can't remember what the actual plot point was, but essentially you're fighting your way. You've got some objectives like, oh, this thing is happening over here. Go take this thing out, or go beat this onslaught of things attacking these citizens, or go, I don't know, do different things. Eventually you unlocked different vehicles. I remember like the last one was like the helicopter, which was really cool. You had missiles and stuff.
Yeah.
I think there was a hoverboard or something, like a flying surfboard.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So ultimately, this one was kind of like a third-person brawler shooter.
Yep.
With some vehicle elements thrown in there. It was a pretty big city map that ultimately you could kind of go around, and that's
like
about
you
as much
said,
as I can remember.
Yeah, and the map expanded over time.
Yeah.
And there was another thing that was kind of big with this, is as you completed missions, you would unlock buildings that you could place down within the actual storyline. And so you could do things within those buildings. So I think you could create
I don't
other.
remember that at all.
What?
Oh, sorry, I don't remember that at all. That's cool.
Really? Yeah, because you have like a home base, and it was like the Hall of Heroes kind of thing or something.
Right.
That's something.
Actually, it's a
different.
separate thing.
Yeah, and so you could like create. I think you could create other little superhero guys. And I don't remember. It's been a while. It's been 4 years, and I didn't play this one today. But yeah, and so you kept working to defeat Syndrome. I think the storyline for this one was somewhat close to the movie, with maybe some liberties, but like you mentioned, you could literally be Syndrome if you wanted to be, and fight against yourself, which is kind of weird.
That seems weird. Yeah,
they kind of just let some things slip and kind of went with it. But yeah, this one was a lot of, because like you mentioned, there's a lot of capsules in these play sets.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a collect-a-thon to find all of those.
Right. Go explore. Yep.
And they give you counters like, oh, you're missing this many, and so if you're obsessed with collecting things, like, you spend a lot of time. And this one, there's just so many places to hide things. It feels like Mario Odyssey and New Donk City, when you're just jumping from building to building, trying to find everything, and so it's cool. There's like little power lines you can surf across, and pipes that you can climb up and stuff. So this one was very, exploration heavy, I think, just because of the city and how big it got toward the end. So, but yeah, I think the main point of it was just beating things up. And unfortunately, I never got to play with, the rest of the family's abilities, because I never owned the other ones. I think I have Syndrome, but I don't have any of the other family. And so most of the time you just spend punching and throwing these robots around. But it was a good one. Probably my least favorite out of the three. Monsters is a close second, but
yeah.
So sorry, I just wanted to throw a little bit in there.
No, that's fine. The next one that I did after that one was the Pirates of the Caribbean one.
Nice.
And this one I think is by far my favorite one.
Definitely.
I think to me it's the one that felt most like a full game, and essentially, so I've pulled up a plot synopsis here, so hopefully this will help.
Nice.
So this one says the story revolves around Jack Sparrow, who has to stop Davy Jones yet again. Next to Jack Sparrow, you can also play as Barbossa, who sometimes is needed to get further into the level, and along the way you can complete missions of several NPCs, like Gibbs, Dalma, Pintel, and Ragetti. I don't know these characters super well. And in a race for a toy that can summon the Kraken at will, is what it says. But like, essentially you go through, I'm looking through here, I mean, there's a ton of locations. This one lists out, let's see, 3, 6, 9, like almost 10 or 11 locations within this playset, where you kind of go through doing different missions. I feel like there was like some stealth, and there was some action, and then there was like sailing, so there was like little stuff where you're running around the village, and then there's stuff on a ship. And when you're on the ship, you can like man the cannons like in first person, but you can also, I think, fire them as a whole from the ship. So just tons of gameplay and tons of location variety, and I think just the sum of all of that is why it was my favorite, and I think it was the most fleshed out. So
totally.
Yeah, just looking. I'm looking through here, like all these items. There's sails and rudders and all these things you could unlock for the toy store.
Yeah,
and
cannon. You could like customize your ship in the game too.
Yeah,
which was pretty cool.
Choose what weapons and stuff to put at what spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, also within each one of these play sets, they had little mini challenges that you could do. I think they changed per character, but they're basically like these giant, like some of them are collect all the orbs, and they're these giant like yellow balloon things, and so you run through the level in a timer, and you have to like pop all the balloons basically. And like in the Cars one, you do a race and you have to beat, and then there's like 3 different difficulty settings.
Okay.
There's like easy, medium, hard, and then when you win, you get sparks or unlock things or something. And so they're basically have nothing to do with the plot, and they just are little challenges you do. And I actually like those. I thought those were kind of fun and kind of broke up the gameplay and made it kind of feel a little bit longer of an experience. So I like those.
Okay. Cool.
Also, just the fact that you can actually sail a ship around in this game, like, just kind of sets it apart from the rest, because
so true.
It's very impressive, and like it doesn't feel really tacked on, or I mean, you can't like go super exploring, but it's not like you're on a ship on rails or something. Like, it lets you just kind of sail around and shoot things, and so I was just impressed from day one with it, just seeing that, because I was like, wow, they actually let you
full
be in a ship.
Gameplay mechanic, and that was never really brought into the toy box either, I don't think. So
no,
it's kind of, it exists on its own within this playset, which is kind of unique about it.
Yeah,
as far as a gameplay perspective. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Totally.
All right, and then the last playset that I know about from the core starter pack is the Monsters University one, and this one was the last one I played, and it was, to me, I think it was a little disappointing after playing. Honestly, to me, after the other 2, it was disappointing. I think it's a little more coherent than the Incredibles one, but I think I liked the Incredibles one more. If I go replay it again, it may be different. But this one is essentially, you are, your starter is James P. Sullivan, or Sully. But you can, let's see, who else can you play as? You can play as also Mike Wazowski or Randall.
Yes.
So essentially, it's this rivalry between Monsters University and Fear Tech, and the thing opens up with them having kind of vandalized your campus, and there's this like competition that's going on where you get like fear coins or something, and completing your challenges, you get a higher tally mark, and essentially you want to have more of those than Fear Tech. And it starts out on your campus, and you kind of are cleaning up and then do some other stuff, and I think there's like a bike at some point, and then eventually you go over to the other campus and you kind of wreak havoc on them, and it kind of, there's some stealth action and more like Splinter Cell-y stuff. So another new semi-unique gameplay mechanic where it's, don't just go beat them up, kick butt, just you gotta be stealthy, go do your prank and not get caught. So it is a really fun one. Like, I like all 3 of these play sets of these core 3, but
yeah, I changed my vote. I agree. I think Incredibles is better. I don't know what I was thinking.
Well,
you're right.
A lot of people say that the Incredibles is the worst one, so you're not off base from what I've read or heard. So
okay.
Either way, like, I don't think any of the 3 are inherently bad. And this one, it's just a different approach to it. I felt like kind of the Monsters University campus was a little smallish. I felt like it's just kind of this thing around the central courtyard, and I don't know, it wasn't that interesting to me. Versus like Metroville was pretty decently sized, and then obviously like the Pirates one was just taking you all over the map, which was cool.
Right.
So, that's as much as I've got on that one. I don't know if you want to chime in at all, but
I think you hit it pretty well. One thing worth noting also that is in each one of these, they have these like vaults that you can unlock by having a character walk up to it.
Okay.
And so for each,
I did see that.
You have to have all of the characters to unlock these vaults. And so this is kind of their cash grab way to get you to collect everything, is you got to have all the characters. And so only that way can you unlock the vault within each playset. And so, some people probably get mad about it. I don't even know if I ever unlocked any, even though I own all the characters now. I probably didn't at the time. And it gives you unlockables or items and characters for the toy box and different characters and things. So I figured I'd mention that too.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, you want to jump into the other 3, the expansion packs?
Yes.
I guess, as they
so I don't remember in what order they all dropped in, but I'll just kind of go in order how I have them listed here. One of them is Cars, which comes with, or you can play it with Lightning McQueen, Holly Shiftwell, Tow Mater, and Francesco. And so, yeah, so this one's way different because your cars, obviously. So all the other ones, you have characters you can double jump with. This one, you don't get a double jump because apparently cars can't double jump, but all monsters can. And so this one takes place in Radiator Falls. And honestly, I think this is one of the maybe two that I didn't play through in their entirety. But I did definitely check it out, and I own, I think, almost all the cars. Maybe I'm missing the girl, and I might have Tomato. Anyway, but yeah, so you basically are supposed to be Lightning McQueen, and you go around and you're helping people out within Radiator. Is it Springs or Falls?
It's Springs.
Did I say Springs earlier?
You said Falls earlier.
Dang it!
It's okay.
Oh,
I knew what you meant.
Anything. You're such a nice guy. You didn't correct me. Yeah, Radiator Spring. And so you're driving around the town, and obviously everybody needs your help. It kind of reminds me of like the old Tony Hawk games where people are like, "Hey," and you run over and like, "Can you do this for me?" And then you go do it, and then you get the objective and you unlock things. And so there was some fun mechanics in this one. I think really the big thing was that you could tow other cars even if you're not tow mater, and so you'd carry things behind you basically. And so I don't think I beat this, so I can't give you a full synopsis of how it all breaks down, but honestly I thought they did a pretty good job with Radiator Springs in this one. It actually felt like everything was where it was supposed to be. It was all relatively correct in size and everything. So I'm not a huge Cars fan, but honestly I think they did a pretty good job with this. So I'm sure there's lots of kids out there that loved playing through this one. Just because.
Yeah, it was such a popular merchandising franchise, so it seems like perfect.
Yeah. And yeah, so not a bad one. It was a good change of pace with having the car thing, and they even had like you could drift and you could charge up your boost by drifting, and so there was some cool little mechanics like that, and where it felt like they were trying to make it a little less generic. So I appreciated that. Yeah, not bad overall. But like I said, this one I didn't play as much. Following that is The Lone Ranger, which is the one of these three that I played the most. I actually beat this entire one and loved it because I'm a big Lone Ranger fan. I don't know if you know this, Jeff.
I didn't know this, and I've never seen actually any of them, like the original or like the TV show or the movie.
Well, I think the Disney movie is criminally underrated. I think it was, I don't know, I just think they were like way too hard on it. But I own a copy on Blu-ray, and I love watching it. I watch it like once every year or something. So I'm a big fan, and I had a good time playing through this one. I think this is the only set of these three that I actually like paid full price to have it and got, you know, the whole thing, whereas the other ones I got like used or whatever.
Yeah.
But I had to have this one because I love westerns and I love that movie, so I was excited to check it out. Yeah, nothing super groundbreaking. You're in a western town, and there's a giant train that goes around the whole town, and so you can jump on the train, and then you can shoot these things that allow the train to take other routes, and so you can kind of visit these other cities.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat actually, and there's different horses. Actually, I think you're trying to get the shiny golden horse at the end, which is faster or something. And so, other than that, I'm trying to remember exactly what else there was to it. I know you go around, and there's like a night and day cycle in this one, which I thought was pretty cool. You can play as the Lone Ranger and as Tonto, and so those are your two options. And that's another thing about this game. A lot of this is co-op. Pretty much all of these.
Yeah.
You can play with another person, and none of these have I ever played with another person.
Same.
Which kind of breaks my heart because
if we ever meet up and hang out, we'll definitely need to do that.
Dude, yeah, I'd totally be down.
So down. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say online that the campaigns are like really so much more fun with two people, and
yeah,
I could totally see that. being a thing.
I watched through some reviews today, and like all three of them that I watched like said that like that it's almost criminal that they charge you for co-op because like it's so much more fun.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think this one would be really cool to have that, just riding around on horses and fighting things. There is one part where like you go to this other town and you can buy all these different things, and one of the things you can buy is an elephant, and so you can ride an elephant around basically the Wild West in Texas. And so it's just kind of crazy and over the top and fun. So yeah, I really like this one. I wish I could like think of more to say about it, but probably the most expansive and felt really open and big, and probably my favorite even over Pirates, but just because I'm a big fan of the theme. I love Westerns and stuff. So but yeah, this is the one. If you're listening and you're trying to pick one out, I would suggest this one and the starter ones. And then finally we have Toy Story in Space, which I think was the last that I purchased, and I never finished this one as well. But it's interesting because it's Toy Story, but it's not based in Andy's bedroom. It's off in its own kind of different setting. It's all kind of in this Buzz Lightyear universe thing.
That's what I was wondering.
And so it's very spacey and all kind of centered around him. In fact, the campaign itself comes with Buzz and Jessie, not Woody, and you have to buy Woody separate. But I think I bought this. I got Woody used and then the campaign, so I didn't have Jessie or Buzz, and so it felt a little weird playing as Woody and doing all these space things, but it's still really cool. And I was playing it today because I never finished it, and I was getting further, and there's this one part where you come across this swamp area on this planet, and there's like multiple different colored goos in this swamp. There's like purple and green, and if you fall into it, it doesn't hurt you, it changes your size, so it'll either make you smaller or bigger. And so yeah, I was like okay, this is really cool. Like, this is a neat little mechanic to the game. And so sometimes you need to be smaller to get through holes, or you need to be bigger to get over things. And then there are these trees that drop fruit, and you can pick up the fruit and throw them at other objects, and it will either make those objects bigger or smaller. And so once again, just a really cool way, different mechanic just to kind of change things up. Obviously you're running around and you're interacting with other characters from Toy Story, Slinky, Rex, Ham. And in fact, at one point I was with Ham and he fell into the goo, and then his voice dropped. So he had this really low Ham voice, and it was just hilarious. And so it made me smile. I'm like, dude, this game's 4 years old and I'm still laughing at it. Like, I think it's funny. That's so cool. I don't know exactly why they chose to get away from Andy's room. Maybe they were just like, didn't want to mess with that, and they wanted to do something different. But it's interesting nonetheless. You can get Bullseye, and you can run around with him and stuff. And so there's some fun little things. So if you're a fan of Toy Story, you should definitely check it out. I think.
I'm wondering if it's because like Toy Story 3 literally was so much of that, and I mean they had just made that like a year or two before.
That's totally why.
A few years before. I'll bet you it's that. I bet you it's like, yeah, we've already done that. Let's expand. And if you think about the opening of Toy Story 2, and so much of the backstory of Toy Story is like Buzz's universe and him thinking it's a real place, and it sort of is but sort of isn't. So, and actually if you think also like at the beginning of Toy Story 2, they're playing like Buzz Lightyear the video game, and it takes place in this Buzz Lightyear in space universe. Somehow they're playing it in the Super Nintendo, and it has like Xbox One graphics, but
right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's.
I love that part.
Yeah, that's great. You're probably right. That's probably exactly why, is they were trying to change it up, which makes total sense. So that's the play sets for the first one. That's what you got, and not a terrible spread. We got we got 2 more Pixar, and then we got 1 more live action basically after the first 3. And so Lone Ranger was pretty new at this point. Maybe if they knew it was going to be a commercial failure. they maybe wouldn't have picked it, but I'm happy they did. Like I like it. So
Yeah.
But
it's still weird. Like now that I'm looking at the list like this, it's still so weird that it's 4 Pixar movies and then 2 live action ones. Like
right.
2 live action Johnny Depp ones to go a step further.
For real. Yeah.
It's just like, where's the variety, guys? Like I understand there was more later, and I actually don't know the full list of playsets for the sequels. I actually have never had a playset for the second or third one. But that's a whole other story for another day. But yeah, it's so weird that it's 4 Pixar movies and no Disney movies or no Disney classic properties as far as the playsets, because those are a hefty part of the game, you know?
Yeah.
So it should have been called Pixar Infinity.
For real. Yeah.
Nothing wrong per se, but like I'm sad that they kind of missed out that opportunity.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like logistics behind all that maybe are a nightmare. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why that happened.
So, oh well, we'll never know. Unfortunately, the series is dead and will never probably come back, which is really sad.
Yeah,
but
I really thought it would last longer. I thought it would be more of a games as a service, though. That was, you buy the game once and you keep the pad, and then you just get updates and new characters.
Yeah.
But they decided to make it like almost annual or every other year, and it was just like, guys, like no.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I remember being excited that 2 was coming out so quickly after 1, but yeah, in the long run, it probably wasn't for the best. But
yeah,
oh well. We have what we got, and we have our memories, so that's all you can do. All right, so real quick before we close out, Jeph, give me your final thoughts on Disney Infinity, the first one.
All right, so my final thoughts really is that this is an excellent game, and if we were giving recommendations, I would absolutely recommend it to anyone. If it gets a little sticky when you say like, oh, should I play the first one and then the second and then the third? Regardless of that, it's a great game, and at the time especially, it was just such a complete package when it could have just been it could have just been a cash-in.
Right.
They could have rushed it out. They could have just made the figures come to life and had just a bare bones toy box, or they could have just had a bare bones campaign for each character and not let you do much else with it. But like it was, like we've covered today. I mean, we're an hour and 15 minutes into this discussion, and I feel like we didn't fully deep dive into this. Like there's a lot of content here and a lot of time and effort and quality to it. There's definitely some technical shortcomings, and that, like I touched on earlier, like that always can happen when you give the player control of the environment and the AI and things like that. So I don't really fault it, and it's not ever to the point that it breaks it. There's a couple times I think where some things didn't trigger in the campaign for me, and I had to like kind of exit out and go back into it, and then it worked, and it was like, well, that was stupid. I would have never known to do that. It was just kind of like dumb luck. So, other than a few bugs, like it's a great package. It's beautiful. It's well, there's a lot of love given to each character. The actual physical toys are high quality, well made.
We didn't even talk about
I know.
that.
We didn't really jump into that. We kind of just summarize that here, and maybe when we do Disney Infinity 2, we can deep dive more into that aspect of it. But they've got some heft to them. They're not posable, but they've got fun, interesting poses, and none of them have that awkward. You see it sometimes with Amiibo where there's just like a stick going up the character's rear end, and it's like, well, no, like these were intelligently posed and structurally sound. They don't break that I've ever seen of anybody. I mean, I'm sure they can, but I've never heard of that being a widespread issue. So I'm rambling at this point. It's a great game, has great toys to life aspect, and a lot of love for Disney fans all around.
Totally. Yeah, man, I can't believe we didn't even talk about the quality of the figures, because they are really good. They're like way better than Skylanders, and they're probably better than Amiibo, but they're pretty close. I know a lot of people kind of put them pretty equal. But yeah, man, these things just look so cool. And so even if you like bought them, back in 2014 or whatever, and you don't play them again, like they still look super cool. And I have them all in my Disney room, and they are displayed proudly. And one day I will get them back down and use them when I have children. And that's the thing, is like, this game will be like one of the big games I will push on my kids one day. Is like, we're going to play this together, and you're going to love it. And yeah, I look forward to that because I think that this is a perfect game if you have small kids. As far as somebody our age in our 20s, early 30s or whatever, 30s, 20s, not necessarily the most fulfilling gameplay. I mean, a lot of the stuff, even in the storyline, it is kind of not dumbed down, but it's
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and so I think I went into the first one so stoked, and I was really kind of stretching to make it be like, all right, well, there's something here for me, and there is. And if you love these properties and you love Disney, you can find enjoyment in it regardless. But really, at the end of the day, you're still gonna kind of, if you're anything like me, you're gonna feel a little bit like, yeah, I mean, it's good, it's fine, it's just. In fact, there was one challenge mission with Jack Skellington where it was just waves of bad guys, and I played the crap out of that because that was the most challenging thing I could find in this game.
Okay.
And I'm not one of those people that needs challenge for it to be a good game. I love Kirby games, and I love, some other simple style games, but that's my only negative is if you're somebody who's looking for more of a difficulty challenge, you might not find it here. But there's still enough in here that obviously I still love this game and enjoy it a lot. Also, we didn't hit on the Hall of Heroes, which is a place that you can you go to, and if you put a new character in, it creates a statue of them, and then you can create this huge hall full of giant statues of every character. And
it's like, looks like a Colosseum, like a Roman Colosseum.
Which is really cool.
I really like that.
Yeah, and it also has like a thing on the floor for the power discs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
it's like a digital trophy room.
Yeah, they're just trying to entice you to get more, and but it's super cool and it's really neat. And so stuff like that, I love it. Like I said, this will be a game that I will hold on to probably for the rest of my life, and can't wait to play it when I have kids one day. So
totally.
For overall, great game. I always have great nostalgia for this game, great memories, and so if you've been on the edge picking it up and you can find a good deal on it, and you can find a place that sells like used characters, and it piques your interest, I would totally say go for it. Check it out.
Yeah.
Even if you just buy the starter, guys, and the starter pack, it's those 3 games alone are great, and this game is a great way to have a Monsters Universe game instead of making a studio have to create a whole game around the movie. You can have this maybe a smaller size video game packed into a much larger one.
Yeah, so, now that you've mentioned that, I almost wish they would have just stuck to, the last release, like, and just made play sets for each new movie release rather than trying to, you know what I mean? Like, that's such a brilliant idea.
Could have had a Moana right now.
God, for real.
Yeah.
They really missed out on that. That would have saved them time and money and still been able to have a good little, supplemental thing to sell. And
exactly.
Oh man, that was a missed opportunity on Disney.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
I hadn't really ever thought of that until you said that.
So anyway, I like to think at some point we'll come back and do 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think we will.
So we purposely didn't cover all 3 of them at once. That would have been a long episode. This already is a long episode. But man, I was so stoked to talk about this one because I love these games. So especially the first one. So anyway, I think that's it. We should probably wrap this up. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. If you made it this far, sorry we went a little long, but this is a newer, bigger, longer game, and so there's a lot to talk about. But anyways, please follow us on Twitter. We are at mouse_bytes, which is BYTES. We're on there. Give us a follow. Give us a shout out. We'd love to chat with you. Also, you can go to www.thenintendovillage.com, where you can find links to all of our episodes as well as other great shows, reviews, and other content. I know all the dudes that work over there, and they make great stuff, so definitely go check it out. Our episodes are now also on the Nintendo Village YouTube. As of recording this, I think they're finally up. I don't know if we mentioned that in our last episode or not, but we have those back up, so all the old episodes we had done up to this point and all the new ones will be on there. So if you for some reason are like to listen to your podcast on YouTube, they're on there, and we also put gameplay footage up so you have something to look at rather than the episode art the whole time. So that is also there. You can check those out as well. Guys, thanks so much. Join us next episode. We're going to be taking a look at Brave for the 360. Should be interesting. I don't think me or Jeph have played this one before, so
no, I'm looking forward to that.
We're going in with new eyes, fresh eyes. So, guys, thanks so much, and we will see you next time.
That's right, and keep your imaginations running wild.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.